This is terrifying. I'm speechless. Devastating blow. Furious. Sorry. These are the subject lines of emails I receive every day, several times a day, as they pertain to current events and national politics. If you're on any of these email lists, I didn't ask to get on these. That's what I get in my email. I'm also getting love letters from the Republican Party these days. Oh, these are Democrats, by the way. We've never seen anything like this before in America. The Democrats have tried to use the ongoing coronavirus pandemic as a way to rig the election this November. Do you think we should hold communist China accountable for unleashing the coronavirus on the world and wrecking our economy? Was your reaction to the Green New Deal to think that, do you think we should stop this Green New Deal that plans to ban airline travel, ban air conditioning, and force people to walk to work? This is in the mail. This is in our email. And this is just visual. What's coming over talk radio, right? What's on social media? And what do you think this is all supposed to do? Invoke fear, invoke anxiety, rile up our anger, and guess what? It works. It works on all of us, actually. Now, why would they want to do that? Why would those nice people want to do that to us? I read some really interesting stuff. I wish I had hours to present this report from Oxford Press on anxiety, fear, and political decision-making, and then on anger and political decision-making. They've done a lot of study on this and how among the things that when anger or when anxiety particularly is induced, they create this level of high uncertainty. The higher the level of uncertainty, the greater the fear. The greater the fear, the more the anxiety. The more the anxiety with flight or fight response, we respond with anger or withdrawal. So among the things that happen, simple things like, well, one of the things that they find, the really simple cues bring up this kind of fear, frightening visual images, the music that they pick on these 1-minute videos, the politicians' facial expressions can be just as anxiety-producing as any threat information about the outgroups or the terrorists that are coming or whatever. So even just the visual stuff. So this leads to several things. Anxiety decreases our capacity for like hands-on problem solving, to think in ways that we think for ourselves. And it weakens the reliance of our underlying convictions in making a determination or a decision. So in other words, no matter what our kind of fundamental values are, when we have anxiety arising or also fear, the correlate there, then that our ability to act out of our principles is weakened, right? That makes total sense. And, the political parties don't have to work so hard to invoke fear. Today, we're all wearing masks because the air is filled with smoke here. Why the easterly winds have brought fire, smoke from the fires in Western Washington, in Oregon, in California. The people living in those fires are already afraid. And, people wearing masks are already afraid. 44% of Americans wear masks all the time. Why? Because we're afraid of the coronavirus. We don't want to inflict it on ourselves and others. You don't want to challenge one of the 66% who is not wearing a mask lest they shoot you. On the other hand, if you're a person of color, you don't have to accost anybody just walking out on the street. Can, raise your anxiety level about being shot or assaulted just for walking down the street. So they don't need to raise fear in Americans And in the world, the Ukraine is burning. I mean, the situations are happening all over the world. So, on last week, on the first night of His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings on the 37 practices of bodhisattvas, the very last question of the night, I heard the simplest and most beautiful advice. It was a question from a man in Hong Kong. And he said, Hong Kong seems to have lost our direction. Insert USA, insert many other countries, but Hong Kong seems to have lost our direction. Please guide us through this practice and difficult time. And His Holiness said, in the world, on top of the problems we usually have, there is an extra problem caused by the politicians that is very complicated. He went on to talk about the politicians in the relations to China and Hong Kong. One sentence. But then he said, what is very important for you people is not to be emotionally disturbed. So when you're faced with problems, you see what kinds of means that you can overcome these problems. Whether the situation can be overcome or not, you should check that. What smacked me in the face, not be emotionally disturbed. Not be emotionally disturbed. The West Coast is burning, people are dying, the government's lying, peaceful protests are murdered, black folks are choked or hung or shot in their own beds. The systems that some Americans like me thought we had in place to protect all citizens have failed. Don't get emotionally disturbed. Yes. Yes. It really did. This is a little poetic for this topic, but it hit me like a gust of clean, cold Arctic air smack in my hot little brain, pushing all the dense clouds out of this. Don't get emotionally disturbed. Yes, said the Buddha. Yes, said His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Yes, said Venerable Tibeten Chödrön. Don't get emotionally disturbed. Instead, what? His Holiness said, as Master Shantideva said, can we all quote this and recite this? If there is a solution or a remedy, what need is there to be unhappy or worried? If there is no remedy, what use is there to be worried? Now I know this. I imagine you all do. And I even share it with others. Broadly. And I even remember to apply this thought in some situations. But I think this is one big gulf between the Buddhist worldview and a worldly view that is so important to bridge. And in my experience, it's very hard to do. We are so conditioned to put stock in our emotions and to believe our emotions. And society tells us it is right to respond with big emotions. You know, like when someone dies, we are expected to wail, to be devastated. I know people who cry when people die, even they don't know who the people are. Why are you crying? Two people die every second, I think, because we're expected to grieve when someone dies. Big emotion. It's important. Same thing with social justice. You can't work for social justice. The general public kind of view is, unless you're angry. You have to get into the streets and be angry. But that's not what the Buddhist view tells us. And Buddhism tells us the same thing that these political scientists have told us, that when our minds are overwhelmed by our fear, by our anxiety, by our anger, we don't think clearly. Our convictions are lost. We can't really solve the problems because we're coming from an emotional state that distorts the view. And what we also know from our Buddhist worldview is that those are the very emotions that make us act in ways that create destructive karma for ourselves and harms other beings. So the more we plug into the emails that we receive or the messages from the Republican Party or whoever we're following, the more we're plugging into the worldly view of how we should be responding to the world right now. Now, this is not spiritual bypassing. This is not passivity, and it's not falling to despair. This is fortifying the mind to develop the fearless courage of a bodhisattva who is unswayed by powerful emotions. His Holiness went on to say in his answer to this question, he says the climate change, for example, the global warming is becoming worse and worse. It's something perhaps that is out of our control. Some experts say that this will increase further. Perhaps we may not be able to do much about that. Whereas we have this human brain and human heart and courage, and the determination should not be lost. So if you determine with courage and look at the situation, you need to find the various means to overcome the problems. So His Holiness is not saying don't feel and shut it off and go hide in a hole. He's saying that we need to find the ways not to be emotionally disturbed by the situations that are around us, and thereby act with a sense of courage and conviction. Now, Venerable Chödrön has given some very powerful teachings on this very topic in the last few days. And anyone that his mind is consumed as we come closer and closer to the election in the United States, the tension is growing higher, I think, out in the world anyway, and in the intensity of the emails that I'm receiving. So we might want to watch these videos again. They're not on YouTube yet, but you can catch them on our Vimeo live stream channel. Thursday teaching on Shantideva, engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds, Thursday, September 10th, and Friday, September 11th, the foundation to Buddhist practice. So watch all those and take notes. But as practitioners, you know, I can't find the source of this quote. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the ones we have been waiting for. No one is going to come and save us. We are the ones we've been waiting for. And as Buddhists, or as people inclined to bring the Buddhist worldview into our daily life, we have an opportunity and I want to say a responsibility, but not in a heavy way, actually. A way to cultivate our fortitude, to put on the strength of mind, to develop the strength of mind so that we can be effective in the situations in which we find ourselves now, and it looks like in the future on this planet, and in the future wherever we end up. Until we become the bodhisattvas that we aspire to be, until we become the Buddhas that we aspire to be, we can't do it if we can't build up the fortitude of not reacting to heavy-duty email subject lines that come from the Democratic or the Republican Party. This is a small practice for us. So I want to talk about antidotes. There's no time to lay into all of these, but what I want to say about antidotes is this. As I was leading the meditation for the online group this morning, we talked about this a little bit, and it's still not set in our mind. You know, using these antidotes to the afflictions is not like waiting until we have a headache to take the pill so that it goes away. It's like making sure that we stay hydrated all the time so the headache doesn't even arise. So that means not waiting until we're angry at something that we see on the news or disgusted by one more thing that some politician has done before we sit down and think, oh no, I'm going to meditate on love. Forget it. How hard is that? I mean, don't forget it. You can try. But if we have been spending time every single day doing things like reflecting on the kindness of living beings, just a few minutes every day. And I see when I slip, it really is so obvious, it's terrible. You know, you think after a while you'd sort of have it in your mind. No. Think of the kindness of living beings every single day, and or doing the practice of offering loving kindness. May they be happy. May they be free of the things that makes them so insanely judgmental word, whatever it is. Wishing them loving kindness as a habit on a daily basis is the antidote to help us not have that fear arise. Thinking about impermanence that things change constantly, or how things come as a dependently arising phenomenon, all the causes and conditions that are coming together to create situations that will change. Whatever the antidotes are, go to tuptenchildren.org, put them in the search box, and you will find meditations on how to do them. It's so very important. Equalizing self and others, breathing meditation to keep the mind calm, meditation on impermanence, I said, loving kindness. And then there are things that we physically can do. This week there's a group called, not sure what they're called, but they're Buddhists and yoga practitioners and insight meditators are working together to do a Get Out the Vote program that people can do easily. You go to Vote Forward is one website where you can sign up for this. Dharma Vote is another website you can sign up for this. Engaged Buddhist election retreats, where they get online, and mostly this is writing postcards to voters. I'm sure they have lists. I didn't go into the detail of it, but it's writing postcards to voters and sending them out in a timed way so that voters receive not even a partisan message, but an urge to vote. So that's something we can do. So if you look at the quote, if there's something that is there something we can do? If we can, do it. If there's not, and don't let our minds be upset. If there's not, then let's set it aside and carry on and really, in this time, deal with the issues that are right in front of us, the people that are right in front of us. Caring for the people that are in our immediate sphere of influence. There's always something to do. So that's my message. It's a message to myself as much as to anybody. But to this, not to get emotionally involved. This is a really important, not to get emotionally disturbed. Not emotionally involved. Not to be emotionally disturbed in the face of what we're looking at in the world right now. Makes us so much stronger and helps us cultivate our armor, our bodhicitta armor, to be able to be of benefit.